All right, everybody, welcome back to the Southern U podcast. Today we've got a really good episode planned. I'm pretty excited about it because I've got two things. One, got the absolute favorite topic of discussion in the outdoors as far as I'm concerned. Get to talk about bow hunting. We've also got one of my mentors, favorite guys, Alan Connor here from AC Sports. So we're excited to have him. Alan, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I'm afraid I'm going to screw that up too bad. But yeah, we're going to be talking bow hunting 101, and I invited Alan to be a part of it because obviously he's knows what he's doing with a bow in his hand, and not only on the tournament trail, but he's also got a trophy wall that would rival just about anybody's. I think he's killed a whole lot throughout his career. So, Alan, you want to kind of, I guess, segue into a little short intro about yourself, man?
Yeah, just a little background.
Yeah.
Just been a professional archer for about 30 years now. You know, I've just been blessed to be successful at something that the good Lord gave me, you know, the opportunity to do. I tell you what, it's been a great career for me, and not just a tournament trail, but like you said, hunting. I've been very fortunate to, you know, harvest some good animals over my career, and man, it's just something I love to do. And you know, after working about 20 years in a steel mill, I was able to get out of there and do it full time, you know, and it's been a great career for me.
That's awesome, man. It's yeah, you guys don't know, I've had the opportunity several years back to work for Alan in his shop, and I got no shame in saying this. Alan, or my dad probably introduced me to the sport of bow hunting, but no shame in my game. Alan's probably taught me everything that I know in terms of bow mechanic and being able to work on this stuff and set up bows and fine tune and figure out problems. And so it's just really cool to get a chance to do this kind of stuff with him too. So, Jeremy, what you got going on this week, man? I know you've had an interesting week out in Kansas, and give people a little update.
So it's been a week out in Kansas. I got back 5 days ago, I think. Getting ready to head back out tomorrow. Had a good week in camp. For those of you that don't know, I help a friend of mine guide with Trophy Class Outfitters, and been doing that for 15 years now, I guess. But a really, really fun deal this past week is I got to put my hands on. Sorry, guys, a fly.
There's a fly in here. Yeah. We're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, there's going to be murder on screen. But got to put my hands on the largest free-range typical deer that I've been able to, you know, in my lifetime. Deer ended up green scoring 191 as a typical 11.
Awesome buck.
Which is just unbelievable. You know, walking up on that deer, we're like, oh, man, it's a stud. And everything about him just kept growing as we stood around and looked at him and talked about it, and then put our hands on him, and then, of course, inevitably taping him. It just floored us all. But, yep, I'm getting ready to go back up and hunt myself. So I'm excited. It's the right time of year to be in the Midwest.
No doubt. Yeah,
and I think that's why we're missing Matt.
Yeah,
I think I got a text from him a minute ago that he had just hung his first stand in Kansas, not too terribly far from where I'll be. So we're going to try to hook up sometime later in the week. Maybe throw a little stuff together while we're still in Kansas.
Oh yeah,
we'll see.
Doubt. Yeah. And by the way, shout out to Matt and his son. They have both killed stud Alabama deer.
I get tired of talking about Matt. You know, that joker, don't get me wrong, there's not a better woodsman out there. His dad taught him well, but my gosh, he walks out the back door and there's a 140-inch deer standing there looking at him just saying, shoot me now, you know, and that happens to him about twice a year.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy. The rest of us work our ends off and a lot of times never lay eyes on a 140-inch deer in this state, and they walk up to his back door.
Yeah, that's true.
Most bow hunters don't know what it takes to harvest 140-inch Alabama deer, especially.
No.
Not just a Midwestern deer.
That's
but
right.
Especially an Alabama deer.
Oh,
because we just don't grow them that big that often. No. You know, they're throughout the state, you know, and on a whole lot smaller basis than a Midwestern whitetail.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And he, I'm not going to say they kill 140-inch deer every year, but they kill Pope and Young type deer every year over there where he's from. And, more power to him.
Sure.
I hadn't ever seen a deer on our farm here in Marshall County. So you go from one extreme to the other. I'm going to get him.
I was about to say, I thought you got
I'm
him.
going to get him in a minute. But
Maybe
yeah,
you
just
scared him away.
Yeah, just one extreme to the other with Matt, and then what you and I have going on over here.
That's right.
Living in Marshall County. So
That's right. Well, yeah, it's funny. I got to go on the SOA hunt that I mentioned on the last episode, and man, just a extremely frustrating hunt. Everything is rushed. That was probably the most rigid in terms of everything from scout times and travel time restrictions and stuff like that. I just never dealt with any of that before. I've been on several SOAs, but you had very limited time to scout, and then you had to be stationary, and it was just like, and then as soon as the hunt is over, like at legal shooting light, you have an hour and a half to get off the property, and it was, if you happen to shoot something, which I did, and
I start to say what you did.
But basically, I do this every time. It makes me so mad, but we had limited access. One of the gates that we were supposed to have had on the north end of the property was locked, so we couldn't get in. At that point in time, it's almost 2 o'clock. We have to be stationary at 3 p.m. I just, look, let's just walk in. I don't know what else to do. We've got to sort of make something, Hail Mary out of the situation we've got here. And, it's a drought in Alabama right now. It hasn't rained in what seems like forever.
Yeah, statewide.
Yeah, terrible. So the only food plot that we had there, it was planted, but nothing had come up. My buddy that I went down with, I said, look, man, you just go get on that food plot. I'll go find somewhere else to hunt for the evening, and we'll just figure it out. But long story short, he hunts the plot. I hunt literally 20 yards off the road in a little oak flat. I found about 15 white oaks. It's kind of in a little flat area right there. And I said, I don't know what else to do. It's 3 o'clock. I'm supposed to be in a tree right now as is. And I was so sweaty and just exhausted. We'd gotten up at 5 a.m. that morning to drive down and all that. I was just like, I'm not even setting up the big camera. By the way, big mistake. If you're in the woods and you've got a camera with you, just set it up every time. But 5:45, 7-porter comes walking out, 26 yards, and
Wow.
zipped him. Which, never. I had such low confidence in the spot, I didn't even set the camera up. But that was my fault.
That's the way it happens, though.
Always, every time.
When in doubt, white oaks.
Yeah,
That's it.
No
right.
doubt.
And it worked. But with that being said, we've talked about before, we're going to do a series of content that we call the 101. And it's just very basic, kind of foundational, fundamental aspects of a lot of different things that are related to land. And one of them, obviously, is bow hunting, right? That's just a means by which you have a chance to hunt whitetail deer and other species of animals here in the South and in Alabama, certainly. So, but it can be pretty intimidating, especially if you've never done it before. It's just, there's a lot of fluff out there now. There's a lot of gimmicky stuff that's being pushed across social media, and you need to have this, this bow or this sight or this arrow or this broadhead, and in order to be successful. And so, kind of what I asked in this episode to ask Alan, really to kind of shed some light on, is if you're a novice, or at the very least you've never done this before, and you go, man, I'd really like to get into archery, I'd really like to get into bow hunting, what are some things that are kind of like essential, or things that you need to know, or what are some things that, hey, look, don't worry about that kind of stuff right now. maybe don't place so much value on these types of things. So very first question is, what equipment is needed to be successful, and what equipment isn't? What's kind of a luxury, or, what's something that, and again, I should have said this earlier too. We're talking compound bows. We're not talking traditional archery or crossbows. That's completely different planets. We're not talking about those. We're talking about a compound bow as a means to harvest an animal. So,
Maybe another episode.
Yeah, maybe, maybe a completely different episode.
Hey, we all know that the whole industry is innovation driven. I mean, that's just like you said. There's so much that floods, the industry every year that is just. Hey, I'm not saying it's useless or we're not ready for it yet. There's just a lot of stuff out there that it's about selling the product. Whether you can be successful with it or not. It's just the industry's driven by that. I mean, it's all about making money for these companies, and rightfully so. I mean, you can't be successful if you don't have that next innovation every year. People expect it. Hunters expect it. And but like I say, the very first thing that my advice can be is seek a reputable pro shop. I mean, find somebody that has some experience, somebody that has a good reputation locally that you can say, you can ask your best friend or you can ask a buddy that's a bow hunter that's been doing it for a while. Most of those guys can lead you to someone to go to that's not going to just be there to sell you a product just because they got it hanging on the wall. But I mean, the main thing is, seek you a good bow shop that has somebody there that's knowledgeable about the equipment and knows how to tune it, knows how to set it up, and pretty much knows what they're doing. You get a lot of these big shops that are combination rifle. Well, take your sporting goods shops for instance. They may have a college kid in there working the archery department, and he just learns what somebody has told him to learn. So you got to seek somebody that has some knowledge and some some past history of setting up your equipment correctly. That's the main thing.
And I don't think you can state that enough.
No, you can't.
Because counting you, there's been 4 people in my lifetime that I've allowed to touch my archery equipment. And they've all been really good. But there's a lot around our local area that I might go pick something up from them.
Oh, that's right.
But when it comes to working on my equipment,
oh yeah. Hey, I see it every year with guys that go buy their product online. They go to a box store and buy it, but they bring it for me to install it.
Yeah.
It happens every year. And I'm not one of those guys that says, no, take that back where you got it. Hey, I install it for them because most of the time it is a new guy.
That's right.
And you don't want to discourage him in any manner whatsoever. You want to pump him up. You want to install it correctly where he's going to be successful.
That's right.
Sure. Because you're building his future.
Yeah.
As a bow hunter right there. If you don't set it up correctly, and he goes off and he misses animals left and right or wounds them left and right, he's going to get to a point where he's, frustrated.
He's going to quit.
He's going to quit, or he's going to wait to hunt till rifle season.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or he's going to go buy him a crossbow.
Yeah. That's a dirty word.
Yeah, here. we're not going to start on that, but still, and I'm not anti any form of hunting whatsoever. Hey, the more hunters we get in the woods, that's great. But like Taylor said, we're talking compound bow hunting right now for today. So, and there's a lot of good other equipment out there. But yeah, seek a reputable guy, somebody that knows what he's doing. Like I say, you're building his future as a bow hunter.
And now I think we've got so much information at our fingertips with face space and all that.
YouTube University.
Yeah, but, if you don't know who the reputable guy is or the knowledgeable guy, ask around. Don't just go somewhere. I got a real close friend that went and bought a bow, and he had no idea what he bought. The guy that sold it to him didn't tell him anything about it. It being set up was kind of an overstate. There wasn't a loop on it. Nothing was right. And I looked at it and I was like, where'd you get there? You ready to hunt? And he's like, oh yeah. And he showed it to him. I'm like, oh no, buddy, you ain't got started yet.
No.
And
you're not ready quite yet.
And I was like, oh man. But seek advice from folks that you know that are hunting, to find that reputable guy, because there not that many of you guys around anymore.
Yeah.
That do a really, really good job. To me it's a dying art, unfortunately.
Well, it takes someone that's dedicated to stay in it that long, and you can't help but educate yourself over the years, as far as not just product, but, tools, the right tools to use, the right equipment to use to set up a bow. There's several different ways that, people have that they want their own personal touch to it. So, and you kind of have to adapt to that. There's certain guys, you say, hey, man, your peep's too low. Well, I've been shooting like this for 20 years. I don't want to move it. Well, then you just kind of have to move on.
Yeah.
You just have to move on to the next step, because a lot of guys are not willing to change. Even though they're great bow hunters, their equipment could be so much better.
Oh yeah.
But they've got that. I did it this way all my life. But they're going to come to you for advice on equipment. And hey, I'm always open to give my opinion on it, and I'll say, hey, my opinion may not be 100% the correct way. It's the way I've been successful with it.
Heard that too.
Yeah,
but that's what it takes too. And like the heading of this podcast right here is equipment that, just take a sight for instance. You don't have to spend $300 on a sight.
Nope.
Hey, yeah, I've got a $300 sight on my bow, which a lot of times sponsorship allows me, to have the very best equipment out there. But there's $70 sights out there.
That's right.
That will get the job done.
I see
that is great product. And, hey, it's just such a long list of products out there that, you don't have to invest, $2,000 in a bow and arrow. To be successful to harvest animals.
Yeah.
And
now that's easy to do.
Oh, you can. Oh, so quickly. It's unreal. Like I said, the innovation that's out there, and when you have innovation, and especially a product that is
ninja skills, guys.
Dude, I'm telling you, Jeremy just had a trophy kill at the table right here. Killed a fly in his hands. It's amazing.
But, there's lots of product out there that is great product that you can install on your bow and be successful with without breaking the bank.
Yeah.
But that's going to be, to install that product, you're going to have guidance. You're going to have guidance to say, hey, don't waste your $70 on that site. Spend your $70 on that site.
Yes.
Sure. It's and a lot of times it's just the repetition of that product, on how it's going to hold up to the abuse that you put it through.
Sure.
So,
and I'd say this too. This is not a platform for us to be pushing anybody to anything.
Right.
Obviously,
any name brand product.
Right. Obviously, we're sponsored by Darton, and everybody at this table knows what kind of company they are, especially in recent years.
Oh goodness, I know it's
incredible. So we're not, don't hear us talk about certain things or certain brands and think we're pushing anybody there. Get you, like Alan said, first seek out a professional, seek out someone who knows what they're doing, and. And Alan, I've heard him say this multiple times in the shop. Someone will be in there shopping around for, just say, a sight, and they'll ask, I don't know, I'm thinking about this one, I'm thinking about that one, what do you think? And Alan will say, okay, look, you asked me for my opinion, now I'm going to give it to you. You do whatever you want with it, but if it were me, this is what I'd spend my money on, or whatever. And so having somebody like that's big.
Hey, there's been multiple times that, I kind of know the customer. When I seen him, like I say, I had a shop for over 20 years. Of course, I sold it a few years back, and I'm kind of semi-retired from the archery shop business, but I still do, from my shop at home. So, and I still do a little bit. But, it's, you kind of have to figure out what that guy's budget is. That's the first question I'm usually going to ask him is, what's your budget? Because there's always going to be a product in whatever budget they have that's going to work for them. So like I say, and all that goes right back to a guy that's knowledgeable on where you can best put your money forward.
Sure.
That's right.
So,
And you made a comment a while ago that you can look at a guy's setup, and a lot of times you can, recommend better. That don't always mean it's got to be new technology either.
that's right.
I saw a picture of a buddy of mine that I hunted with and shot tournaments with at Auburn. So that was early 2000s. Some gun was still hunting with a switchback with a bow doodle rest on it. I'm like, that stuff's 20 years old, at least, and still getting the job done and getting it done very well.
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
There's tons of product out there that's tried and true, that you can't go wrong with to this day. I mean, even certain brands of arrows that, certain models of arrows that have been around for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of innovation in carbon technology, but hey, it works.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Beeman still did the ICS Bowhunter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine broke his case open while we were on a trip in Montana and Wyoming, and by gosh, there's the Beeman ICS Bowhunters. I'm like, wow, I didn't know they still made those.
It's the same with the Black Eagle Outlaws. That was one of Randy Kitt's first arrows that he probably came out with, it and the Carnivore. And they're still, to this day, probably his best-selling arrows.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Best two-selling arrows.
And speaking of Black Eagle arrows, wow.
Yeah, right.
I've shot a lot of good ones, through the years. And as far as tough, good quality arrow, you put them on the scale.
Yeah.
They weigh what they're supposed to weigh. You check their straightness. They're straight. Wow. I mean, I know that sounds like a fanboy because, they with Darton, they do help us out on the channel, but one of our deals when we first started this is, they kind of came to the table with some discussions, and we all said, well, look, we haven't shot your stuff before, so we want to put our hands on it before we're gonna go out and rep this stuff to the public, and I've been blown away. I really have.
And I mean the arrows, side of as far as Black Eagle, I've shot their stuff exclusively pretty much since Alan, said,
put them in your hands.
Yeah, he said, hey man, you need to give them a shot. And the thing about them, there's a lot of good companies out there, and they make a lot of good stuff. I think probably with Black Eagle, what's the most impressive to me is if you get a set of arrows, let's just say you bought one for this season, and then next season you buy another dozen, right? The consistency between is going to be, I mean, it's amazing. Like, if I cut my arrows the same length and I put the same components in there, they weigh the exact same.
They're not going to be 8 or 10 grains difference.
No.
Right? And you see that sometimes. I mean,
that's right.
I'm not mentioning no names, but, being in it as long as I have, you see it. I mean, from one batch number to the next batch, you may have 5 to 8 grains difference sometimes, but with the Black Eagle stuff, it's always very, very consistent. I mean, it's the same way under that whole family umbrella of their products. They're, from Darton to Black Eagle to Conquest Stabilizers. I mean, all of their products are just so consistent.
Yes.
I mean, it is just, and the performance of them are what to be expected. Of what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So, I didn't mean to get us off topic.
No,
sorry.
But no, I mean, it's worth mentioning. I mean, it really is, like, because I was pretty honest with Randy, and I mean, and with you guys who would be listening to this too. If you hear us mention a brand, it's because we have experience with it and we believe in it. And I was very transparent with Randy and said, Randy, look, I've shot your arrows for years since you've been making them. I know what I'm getting with that. I've never shot a Darton, and so I would want to have one in my hand, and before I start telling people, hey, these are quality, and so, you can ask that 7-pointer. It works. It strokes. It'll shoot. So
and Matt's done some damage with his.
He has, man.
I'm the only one left out so far.
Well, you're going to the land of giants. I think you'll be able to do it. But yeah, and I guess just I guess some physical items when we're talking about equipment. Alan, if you would maybe just like what's some equipment that you feel like, hey, you need to make sure that you get a quality, wrist or a quality.
So this is outside the bow.
Yeah, we're outside of the
Right.
bow itself, but
Kind of
like
got to have that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need a bow. And by the way, that's what I'm saying. Shoot whatever you want to shoot, and make sure it's something that feels good and is fits you well. Those sort of things. We're not trying to push you towards anything,
Yeah,
but
go shoot as many as you can shoot.
yeah,
Exactly.
Go shoot and find you
Exactly.
something that works for you. But apart from that, what should a new bow hunter or someone who's trying to get into this, what should they spend their money on, and what should they probably kind of like? Let's hold up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, it kind of bounces right back to budget. I mean, there's a lot of different rests out there, and you start from the whisker biscuit and work your way up to the top-notch drop-away rest out there. And there's even the whisker biscuit. Oh my goodness, they've sold gazillions of those things. And what I've seen from my experience with them on setting them up and tuning them, and hey, they'll get the job done every time. But they may suffer just a little bit at longer distances. They may not be as forgiving as some of the other rests out there. I mean, so you drop it. In your next category is a drop away, and there's tons of drop away. Like I said, the whole industry's innovation driven. I mean, from limb driven to cable driven to cable activated till, I mean, it's just so many different ones out there. But if I was going to choose one item, the very first item I'm going to choose to set up my bow is going to be an arrow rest. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, it's kind of like a rifle. Don't put no cheap junk scope on it.
Right.
The first thing, if you're gonna, there's guys out there that have more invested in their scopes than they do the rifles.
Yeah.
Well,
Same.
I can't say that.
Yeah. Same way with that arrow rest, though. I mean, choose an arrow rest that has, good durability, that you don't hear a lot of negativity about as far as, hey, I got to send this rest back. It's not operating right. Find one that's out there that has a good reputation, and there's tons of them.
What about for new folks? You mentioned the whisker biscuit and drop aways, and they may not be, fully understand what we're talking about because we don't have a whisker biscuit and drop away here. And
Right.
We got them on our bow, but
we're talking a capture rest.
Okay,
That's
that's what I was
we're
wanting to
talking
get at.
something that captures your arrow, feeds through, bristles through what they call a biscuit, and
But
they
essentially, if they're a little jerky, arrow's not really coming out.
exactly. Sometimes they can not be quite as forgiving as some other rest out there, and I have set up, and it's all dependent on the bow also.
Oh yeah.
Some bows are temperamental. They may not like a biscuit. You may have to put a drop away rest on them. So I'm not down in the product none whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, there's been a gazillion deer harvested with a whisker biscuit. Same way with drop away arrow rest. But and it goes back to your bow. I mean, it goes, like I said, some bows can be temperamental, and they're like, man, I can't get this bow to tune. Hey, does it shoot 2-inch groups at 20 yards? Yeah. I mean, is it forgiving at 40? No. So you kind of run into that sometimes, that you start seeing your group spray at the further distances, which, I'm not a big proponent of guys taking shots that they shouldn't be taking.
Absolutely.
And that goes back to their abilities, how long they've been doing it, if they're just a natural great archery shot anyway. I mean, some guys can get away with it more than other guys can.
Sure.
So, it's it's kind of like Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. And that's just, and that is so true. I mean, be honest with yourself and say, hey, I'm not shooting an animal past 30 yards.
Yeah, sure.
So, and then that narrows down your choices to where, hey, I can get by with a whisker biscuit.
Right.
Or I want a QAD drop away rest, or if you got a guy that's, hey, he's been doing it all his life and he thinks, hey, I want a Hamsky, I want a limb-driven Hamsky rest, and that's what I want. Yeah.
No.
Hey, I mean,
More power to you.
it goes back to just like what we was talking before. I mean, you can spend $49.99 on an air rest, or you can spend $300 on an air rest. So it just goes
And
back
they both
to that.
hold airs.
They both do the job, and they'll get the job done. And it just depends on what you're expecting out of a product and what level of expertise that you are. So, but it goes back to that question. The very first product I'm going to put on my bow, the first choice I'm going to make is going to be the air rest.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, sure. And then, of course, and again, I'm trying my best to not completely nerd out because we could go down a serious rabbit hole on different equipment choices and things that I like versus other people, whatever. I'm trying to rein in this type stuff, but I mean, yeah, I think a rest is probably the most important, most crucial thing because that arrow's got to fly right. You know what I mean? It's got
Exactly.
you got to be able to make that happen, and then from there, it's like then we're talking about a sight. Is it a fixed pin sight? Is that probably the best route for someone to go, or is now it seems like everybody now has got a wheel sight or a
Single
or a,
pin
or a slider,
roller.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
or something like that
With a dovetail.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I mean, I'm guilty of some of that stuff, but I have found myself in years liking to go out and shoot with buddies and shoot further distances, and I've kind of changed my setups because of that. But man, the old tried and true, riser mounted fixed pin, it'll do the job every time.
Every time.
That's right.
Yeah. You choose you a good something that has good optics in it, good fiber optics. That has once again a good reputation. There's brands out there that have that are tried and true, and people revert back to them every time that they change bows. I mean,
you mentioned the fiber optics, and this may be getting into the weeds a little bit, but I know if I was looking initially at what side I wanted, they got different pin sizes. So it's 19,
all the way
10,
down
19,
10,
29.
well, 10, 15, 19, 29.
Okay. And essentially that's the size of the end of the fiber optic
Exactly,
that you're
the
looking
diameter of the optic itself. Of course, now when they're installed in the sight, say you get a 10 thousandths. By the time they flare it, most of the times in the pin, it's going to increase it to probably 12 to 14 thousandths.
Okay.
So
see, that's good information.
Yeah, I mean you're going to see fibers because they have to flare that fiber to make it stay in the pin. So it's actually going to be a little bit larger diameter. And some companies do them bigger, some of them do them smaller. And it all depends on the company, but. And a lot of times your choice of the diameter of your pin can be age related. Like me at my age, I shoot a 19 thousandths. I can't see a 10. 10's just too small because when it gets critical time, first dawn, last light, that 10 thousandths for me is just not bright enough. It doesn't even with an artificial light source. Then the smaller diameter for an older guy, you're going to get a starburst.
Yeah.
That's what happens in it, So 19 works out pretty good for me,
Man, this is coming from somebody that can still see good at his age. He keeps throwing this at his age.
Yeah.
Some gun can still shoot aspirins out there to where I can't even see.
I don't know about that
gun
anymore. But.
No, it's funny because just a couple weeks ago, my dad called me in an absolute having a fit. I can't see my pins. I don't know what's going on. Blah, blah, blah. I said, well, calm down, man. What is it? And he's just like, I just can't. I don't know. I said, well, you shot out in the yard before you went hunting, right? Well, yeah, I can see my pins then, but when it gets dark, I can't see.
This guy.
So
it has happened fast.
I called out. I had to call Alan and go, hey, man, I think we got to get a verifier or something for Dad. He's freaking out.
You can't stop those birthdays. They're going to keep coming.
Nope.
But, probably the most popular out there is going to be a 19. When in doubt, 19 thousandths is hard to beat, for anybody.
Yeah, good all the way around.
Oh, yeah, plus they're more durable. The smaller diameter fiber you got, the less durable they are. They're more prone to breakage. So even with the development of fibers, I mean, there's still even some guys, companies out there make a really good fiber, but the smaller diameter is always more prone to to failure or breakage. So it's kind of hard to beat a 19. It gives you kind of something that at the longer distances that doesn't cover up your point of impact that you're looking at. So it's kind of hard to beat a 19, but. And there's only a couple of companies out there that are actually manufacturing the fibers, and so there's most people utilize. You see a lot of companies utilizing the same brand fibers out there. So
right, and then I guess I've always just, you guys can push back on some of this for stabilizers and quivers. If you're gonna not spend money, or if you're trying to watch your budget, that's probably where you'd probably lean. You go, hey, like I can get a quiver that doesn't cost a fortune, and that can hold my arrows, or I can get a stabilizer that doesn't cost a fortune to help stabilize things out. Now
I'm blown away what they cost now, by the way.
Yeah.
I got a new quiver, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna pick me up, but a decent quiver, bull.
Yeah.
The $15 quickie quiver from 25 years back.
Gone, buddy.
Yeah.
I think that one over there on my bow is $200 and something. Which, I mean, it meets the criteria that I wanted out of a quiver, but by gosh, I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that was heartbreaking.
Speaking of quivers, there's like all the accessories, there's tons of different ones available, and usually it boils down to where I want a stationary quiver, or I want a detachable quiver.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that I talked about earlier that's kind of set in my ways, not going to change. Soon as I get in a blind or a tree stand,
it's coming off.
My quiver's coming off.
Me too.
It goes in my backpack right here behind my right shoulder, and I usually pull the next arrow loose from the holder to where I can just reach back, pick it up, load another one.
Yep.
And a lot of that kind of comes back to me being a tournament archer. I don't want any of that extra weight on my bow. I want to be able to shoot that bow naturally, but you can set your bow up with a stationary quiver. One that's attached to the bow, and get used to, and you can offset it with stabilizers and stuff like that for that weight being on that sight side. And
I think that's probably much more common out west.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
It is.
Yeah, if I'm going to chase elk or mule deer or something, then I'll leave one on there. But around here, that quiver's coming off.
You see it geographically.
Yeah.
Alabama guys, they're taking them off.
Yeah, that's right.
9 out of 10 of them are.
That's right.
I mean, there's, and I got guys I got buddies, that's from the Midwest. They never take their quiver off. But, I'm just one of those guys that's coming off, But there's tons of options there, I mean, there's several out there that are just fantastic. But if you're going to choose a stationary one, try to find a good, durable, lightweight one. Those two words don't usually go together.
Right.
But they are out there, And I mean, I know Randy's coming out with a new one for this year.
Okay.
That's the stationary quiver too. So
I know I found myself this time just through experience wanting a quiver that I could actually extend the length where they were holding the arrows. I didn't want it all up top and next to the hood. I wanted something a little longer to give those arrows more support, because I've hitting them on stuff and knocking them out and having to walk back and pick arrows up and whatnot. Even though that you can tighten those things down and really clamp them in, I'm an idiot that gets hung on everything. Y'all will learn that when you're in the woods with me. I don't know how it happens, but I do. And hood size.
Exactly.
I was running into trouble, and I don't shoot a big broadhead. I shoot Q8EX, just broadheads.
Yeah. Just fitment issues.
Yeah. Getting the blades not to rub up against each other and not rub against the hood and dulling my edge.
Right. Well, also, if you're shooting a fixed blade head or you're shooting expandables, you want enough room in that hood to where your expandables are not going to, open, by catching the edge of the quiver. Another thing, too, just like that quiver right there, you notice it holds your arrow twice. there's some out there that only holds your arrow once.
Mm-hmm.
Get one that holds your arrow twice.
Oh yeah, for
because
sure.
you're less likely for them to come loose, drop out of the quiver. When you have them holding it twice like that, it's more durable. You know, even on a quick detach, I want one that holds my arrow twice.
For sure. Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I did notice, because I've got multiple setups, I've got old bows hanging around. Now with these micro diameter shafts,
Oh yeah.
you go to throw it in an old quiver,
Nope.
good luck.
Yeah.
It's not staying.
Nothing touches it.
No.
It just
Yeah.
slides right out.
Not at
So,
all.
an adjustable quiver, or at least a mechanism that holds the arrow in, I have found to be really nice. But that's not on your entry level, from what I've seen.
Right.
It's not on most entry
Well,
levels.
there's good quivers out there that's $35, $40 quivers.
Right.
That work great. And then there's quivers like you said, $200, $300.
Oh yeah.
That do a great, awesome job. They're lightweight, but most of those quivers are stationary quivers.
Yeah.
They're, stationary on your bow. So, but there's tons of innovation out there that builds good quality quivers.
No doubt.
Once again, hey, ask an experienced guy. Ask somebody that's used the product.
Right.
So,
No doubt. Which I know we've kind of talked about everything. Of course, the only thing we haven't really talked about too much is the business end of that arrow.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we're having this conversation 25, 30 years ago, we're probably not talking about one of these categories.
exactly.
But
Everybody's shooting a thunderhead.
yeah, everybody's shooting. Yeah,
Or a muzzy.
That's right, a muzzy or a Rocky Mountain Thunderhead or something like that. But
That came from Walmart.
if you are talking about it 25 years ago,
oh yeah,
you're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
If you're shooting expandable, you don't know what you're doing.
exactly.
But then again, it's just innovation.
It is.
It's just, the broadheads have evolved so much. Oh my goodness. It's just unreal at the opportunities that you have of choice
Oh yeah.
out there now that are great products. How you field tip a killer animal.
If you put it in the right place.
If you put it in the
That's
right place, it's going to do the job. But there's that kind of goes back to something that's forgiving and not forgiving. And you run into that sometimes with certain brands of broadheads, there's so much opportunity of choice out there now. It's just unreal.
And you mentioned the forgiving and not forgiving. Obviously,
and the broadhead deal can be a loaded question too.
Yes.
There's everybody's got an opinion on them. So
the expandables are obviously much more forgiving because there's less surface area,
Exactly.
planing in the wind. But I'm not going to mention any names, but there's several around locally that's like, you don't have to tune your bow at all, and you can shoot a mechanical head.
exactly.
And
Because
and up close, our typical yardages, I would say that's probably
For the most part.
for the most part okay.
Right.
But my nephew who has developed into a pretty good archer was like, my broadheads aren't flying right at distance, and he was shooting a Rage Trypan, and which I have found to be a good head. I shoot them out west on game like pronghorn. I'm not going to shoot them in a whitetail, but I've got him practicing at distance. He's practicing with me at 60, 80, and sometimes plus.
that makes a 20-yard shot a chip shot.
Yes,
That's what it does for you.
but at 20 yards,
Not promoting the 60-yard kill,
No, right,
but
the
it does.
practice.
It makes you a better archer up close.
That's right.
No doubt.
But his, at 20 yards, those Rage flew fine. But that magnified as he got out to 60, and they were hitting very different than his field tips were. And I was like, well, it's just your shooting. Well, it wasn't. He repeated it, and he was getting groups with those broadheads being off several inches as compared to where he's getting groups just one after the other at 60 with a field tip. I had not really ever seen that much.
It's rare, especially with a Rage.
I'm guessing maybe that the blade has enough.
Well,
surface
it's
area.
also too, like you were kind of saying, it's not an excuse to not tune your bow.
Right.
Right. Like it's not an
Exactly.
excuse to just
Right.
like
Go tune your bow.
like your
and
stuff
then
needs to be right.
Yeah.
And
that's
you
what
know.
I was getting at. If people are using the excuse of, well, I can shoot this and I don't have to properly prepare my equipment.
Yeah.
Which, no. You know,
Yeah.
properly prepare your equipment, then make your choice on what you
Exactly.
want to shoot.
Well, that goes back to what we was talking about earlier on tuning. You know, tuning does not end with your field tip.
Right.
You know, I mean, it just like you said, you may find out that your bow needs just a little bit more to carry, you know, as far as the tune, and it may be just a simple adjustment on the yoke. It may be a simple adjustment on the center shot of your arrow rest, you know, or the up and down on your arrow rest. You know, it may like that just a little bit, that extra little touch, to bring that broadhead back in sync.
Well,
So-
I know with mine, when we were trying to shoot in the Darton, which, by the way, was unbelievably easy, with that
3 shots.
Yeah, with that E system.
Oh,
on it,
the E system's phenomenal.
I was like, okay, you know, I've been
3 shots.
a Bowtech guy for a long time, and still got a Bowtech that's a backup bow, and their system of tuning is very, very easy. And I looked at that E system, I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
So somebody's finally as easy
Well,
as Bowtech. But
they
now,
need to make it the easy system because the E system is tuning for dummies.
it,
I mean, it's simple.
Absolutely.
It is so easy and so simple to do. I mean, you know, if you got a right tear, twist the right side of the yoke. I mean, it's left, twist left for a right-handed shooter.
but
but
it was shooting fairly good with the, you know, a field tip, and I started messing with it, and things weren't flying just perfect. And Taylor's like, hey, throw a heavier head on it. Okay, we'll see. Went from 100 to 125 head, and it was just a bullet.
Literally,
I
the
mean,
third
just
shot
a
was
bullet.
that just,
absolute bullet.
you know, knocks you back to spine,
Yeah.
you know, on your arrow. I mean, when you're loading that weight up on the arrow, you're changing the dynamic spine of that
That's
arrow
right.
a little bit. So,
Which
And
that's getting way
Yeah.
into
Oh,
the
yeah.
weeds for us guys that's
Yeah.
been shooting a long time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it just goes. We're just saying that, you know, if you'll properly tune and then vet your equipment, you can shoot anything you want to shoot.
Yep.
I mean,
That's
you
right.
could shoot a 2x4 off the front of it, as
Right.
long, you know, as long as it's tuned right.
Yeah.
And it's going to fly right.
Yeah, and that is one thing without, which I know we kind of been talking for a while, but without getting too far off, Alan, would you mind maybe just talking a little bit about arrow spine, making sure if like, hey, look, I was going to run in a big box store and grab me a set of arrows and so I can go to
Right.
the woods and hunt. What's a good way for someone to narrow down the proper spine for what they're doing?
well, you know, just say you're going in a box store. Most of the arrows that you purchase on the box, it will have a spine chart. You know, as far as what arrow to choose for the poundage that you're shooting and the length of arrow that you're going to be shooting. You know, if you're in question about that, you can go on Easton, Black Eagle, Gold Tip, Victory. You can go on any of their websites, and there will be a spine chart on that website to where you can say, hey, I'm shooting a 27-inch arrow on 65 pounds. And then there's going to be a chart to where you can go in there and you can determine what spine arrow to choose. I mean, you know, when in doubt, I always opt for the heavier spine.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, because it's going to be easier to tune when you get kind of on the light side sometimes. Then you kind of start running into tuning issues, or and you may not. It's all about the bow. You know, what the bow likes.
Yeah.
But most of the time, those spine charts, and they'll be they will be on the side of that box.
Yeah,
right.
You know, most of the arrows out there today.
And at
will
big
have a
box
spine.
stores, generally that's turned to the back. So pick the box.
Yeah,
up
you
and turn it around.
Yeah, and usually on a box store, you're kind of on your own.
That's
you
right.
know. You may run across somebody in some of those stores that are knowledgeable, and you may not. You know, if you ask and he mumbles around, well, this is what I shoot. Well, that's probably not the right answer that you're looking for. You know, look at that box. You know, and the charts are relatively easy to distinguish. You know what to do on it, and it's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So
And another thing on the arrows is years ago we didn't have this problem because we didn't have carbon arrows. But with these new carbon shafts, check them after you shoot them.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if they've slapped together or you've missed
Yes,
a target. Look and make sure you don't have a little crack or a little piece of the carbon peeling, because when one of those come apart,
Shrapnel in all directions.
I got
not good.
several close friends that are scarred up.
yeah.
And
So it's just something to be mindful of. We're not
Exactly.
saying, hey, this is really, really dangerous, but it does happen, and it comes from people not checking.
I've got a
equipment.
best friend that went in here and come out here.
Yeah.
It happens,
It
and it was because of not the manufacturer's fault. It's because I mean, shooting groups probably shot a cracked arrow. Like you said, bend them, flex them. If they crack, pop, throw them in the garbage.
Right.
Into the garbage.
Yep.
So we-
Don't take it for granted. Check them.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I mean,
Costs
check
nothing
'em.
to check them.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. If you value your hands and your arms, check them.
How they
Yeah.
function.
I'd
Yeah.
like to keep doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've talked about kind of the physical, the equipment side of things. Now, what I was going to see is maybe like we've talked really mainly about like archery, not necessarily bow. We haven't talked about trying to take an animal with it. So I guess kind of this second question here is, what knowledge does a bow hunter need to be successful? And what I mean by that is like archery and bow hunting are different things. One of them, you're shooting at a stationary target. The other is you're trying to harvest an animal that can react and move and and can
They
smell.
can do it quickly here
Yes,
in
they
Alabama.
can.
Oh yeah.
So I guess just in a nutshell, what does somebody who's never done this before need to know about the pursuit of an animal with a bow and arrow to be successful? Like what's something that people probably need to?
Well, the main thing, and Jeremy will relate on this too, because he's a guide. I've been lucky to do a little bit of that myself, but he's done it way more than I have, and he'll tell you, just like I do, for an inexperienced archer, first of all, it comes down to controlling your nerves, but the main thing is shot placement. No doubt about it, in my opinion. It's about, it ain't how fast that arrow gets there with your equipment. It's about where you put that arrow, and practice makes perfect. Get you a 3D animal, learn where to put that arrow in the kill zone, and, be truthful with yourself on your abilities. Kind of like we was talking about before. If your grouping's not, saucer size at 20 yards, practice. But it all comes down to a successful harvest on bow hunting, on shot placement. That's what it takes, is putting it in the right place, and all your other equipment's going to do the job.
That's it.
Especially your broadhead.
Yeah.
Your choice of broadhead. If you put it in the right place,
It's going to work.
it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all. That's the answer I have to that question. The main number one answer is shot placement.
And one thing I'll add to that, and Alan, it's the woodsmanship of his age group, and to a lesser extent mine, and it's lessening as we go down. Is people don't really understand the body language of the animals that they're pursuing.
What state they're in.
Yeah.
What state of alertness, what state of mind they're in.
And here in the Southeast, that is very important.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen it, personally, on some old film that some friends of mine were shooting. One of his cameraman, Casey Shootman, is Chuck Sykes' cameraman. He just moved down here from Illinois, and they're sitting in a tree, and Casey's like, "Hey man, shoot that doe," and Chuck's like, "No, doe nearly 40 yards. I can't hit it." And Casey's like, "What? Yeah, you can shoot that doe." He's like, "No, I'm not shooting at that deer." And finally, Casey talked him into it, and Chuck reluctantly, shoots. And this is 20 years ago, I guess. And no kidding, you can watch the footage on the TV, put the tip of your finger where Where that arrow is supposed to go on the deer, the arrow's there, and the deer's no longer there.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just gone.
She's done dropped out.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that up there in the Midwest like you
No,
do
they'll
here.
stand there and take it.
That's right.
Yeah, but and that's where knowing the animals that you're pursuing comes in, especially on an alert animal here.
Exactly.
They can be in the next county.
Well, I think a lot of times people take it personal. It's like, well, I've got the ability. I can take that shot. I know you can. It's not about you.
Exactly.
It's about that animal.
Exactly.
It can react.
What
faster.
state of mind that animal's in.
Yes.
Exactly.
If they don't have a clue you're in the world, then can you kill a deer 40 yards in Alabama?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if they're full alert and you shoot at a deer in Alabama, can you hit it? Yes. Can you kill it? Yes. But there's also as good, if not a better chance, that deer is going to react enough to cause you to have a marginal shot and may not recover the animal.
You have to answer that question. Can I aim 8 to 10 inches low?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can I put this pin under that deer and squeeze the trigger?
Exactly. I mean, and like Taylor said, Midwest deer don't react like that. Mm-mm. You know, I'm not saying that they don't, but generally they don't.
Right.
They will. They'll just stand there and take it a lot of times. But now you still get pressured animals in the Midwest too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that's going to react quicker than, say, you're hunting a private farm that you're the only one hunting a 300-acre lot.
Well, you know, that deer I talked about in the opening, the 191-inch deer, you know, that guy's experienced archer, killed a lot of deer. And he said, you know, the deer was walking, and I felt like I needed to stop him. And he said, he come unglued for about 4 or 5 steps. Mm-hmm. He said that deer was at 10 yards, but he was walking. So he's on the deer, and he manks. And he jumps out to 20-something yards just
right.
quick. You know, he still made a great shot. Deer didn't go out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that deer had obviously must have been manked that before or something. But, you know, deer don't grunt up in trees, or they don't mank up in trees.
That's directly related to, you know, this question.
Yeah.
That archer kept his composure.
He did.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a lot of relate to this question that Taylor's, you know, put forth here is composure.
Don't panic.
Exactly. You got to compose. And everybody's going to get that, you know, a little bit of that target panic, and they're going to get that buck fever, doe fever, whatever you want to call it.
I see it.
Deer fever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
So it's going to happen, especially if it's your first or second animal.
Oh, yeah. You'll feel like you're going to shake out of the top of the tree.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I mean.
And when you quit getting that, you probably need to do
Exactly.
something else.
Exactly. I was about to relate to that, you know, when I've harvested way over 200 animals with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the day I quit getting giddy, even on harvesting a doe, I'll stop bow hunting.
Yeah.
You know, I still enjoy it to this day, but the more animals that you can put under your belt, I'm not saying, hey, go exceed the harvest limit, but the more you put yourself in that situation, the more you can control it, and the more your percentage of harvest is going to go up. Mm-hmm. Your success is going to go up.
Our mutual buddy RL, he had a guy in camp several years ago, and I happened to be there. I think I was actually hunting instead of guiding at that time. And guy from Florida was up, and he couldn't close the deal. And nobody's really sure why he couldn't close the deal. He just couldn't close the deal. And RL told him, said, look, save your money, quit coming up here to the Midwest, because he'd never killed a deer with a bow, and he's in the Midwest bow hunting.
Right.
And RL said, look,
trying to harvest a 140-inch deer.
Yes. Yeah. And he said, go home, get in a club, and shoot every deer you want to shoot. And call me at the end of that year and rebook. Mm-hmm. And the guy shot like 7 or 8, 9 deer that next deer season with a bow and a club in Florida. Came back, you know, had he killed 50 deer? No, but he'd close the deal on 7 or 8 southeastern deer
that's invaluable experience.
On exactly. Edge, and he come up there and closed the deal, made a great shot, you know, smoked, you know, the best buck of his life, which he hadn't killed too many, but
still, yeah.
But it was that experience of actually closing the deal with archery equipment.
Exactly.
Because it's not that easy.
No, it's a close game.
Yeah,
It is.
It's a close game.
Some people get lucky. I got really lucky where I grew up hunting. Now, we didn't have good deer. We just had a lot of them.
Right.
So the first time my butt ever landed in a seat with a bow in my hand, I killed a deer. I killed a deer the next day. I was pretty bloody back then, which we had a lot of deer, and it was legal to do so. But that generally doesn't happen.
No.
People don't have that many deer to shoot at like we did. So I could mess up on the first 15 that came by,
Right.
get seen, drawing or whatever. But
Right.
could close the deal on that 16th or 17th one that came by.
There you go. Well, in that same spirit, this kind of next question here, ask you guys to kind of go back. I was thinking about this earlier today, kind of trip down memory lane, but if you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice as it comes to bow hunting, right, what would you tell yourself? Like, if there's something in your early days, like, gosh, I wish I'd have known that now. Wish I'd known that then instead of now or whatever. Is there anything in particular you might like?
Oh, I know one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, right off the bat, mine, and it cost me the biggest deer of, my hunting career in the South. I can't tell you that it was anything bigger than I've shot in Texas or in the Midwest. But anytime you make just a minor change, shoot the bow and shoot it a lot to make sure you understand what that change did. I made a minor change to my bow, and I'd killed a lot of deer up to that point. I was a teenager, and made a change of it's actually arrow weight, I believe. I mean, we were still shooting aluminum, so but it was different shaft, and oh man, this is good. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
It was about 6 inches lower than it should have been.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, you get in, like you said, you get into that where there's fads.
No, oh yeah.
Everybody wants to shoot a heavy arrow. Everybody wants to shoot a light arrow. Everybody wants to shoot a 6-inch overdraw. There's just, man.
Had them all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's fun experimenting that with new product, new equipment, and new styles of shooting. But then again, like I said before, you got to be honest with yourself. Is it really working just because my buddy's using it? Does it work for me? No, not necessarily so. I mean, your buddy may be a 30-inch draw and you're a 27-inch draw.
That's right.
His setup is going to be different than yours. What works for him don't work for you.
That's right.
I mean, it's just it goes all reverts back to, like I said before, find somebody with experience to lead you on that. But getting back to this question, my answer to that question, if you could go back in time, something to teach yourself, I would have taught myself more patience to start with, and everybody makes this mistake of, and you see it especially with social media, peer pressure, is just get an arrow and an animal. That's it. That's it. I mean, and that's the wrong thing. I mean, I lost some deer when the first whitetail I ever shot at with a bow, I harvested it. But then I went a little gap right there to where I thought, man, I got to kill this animal.
Yeah.
But make yourself practice patience. Shot placement, but patience. Don't take a shot that's not a quality or high percentage, harvest shot.
Yeah.
Teach yourself patience. Archery, bow hunting is a close game. Wait till that animal gets close enough. Wait till he presents, the right shot.
Yeah.
So
I
it's all about patience.
I thought about it earlier, and for me, this is going to sound kind of dumb, but if I go back in time and tell myself something,
just like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Look, I'm gonna be 35 in less than 2 weeks, y'all. I look like I'm 12, but knowing when to draw.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm not kidding. There's, especially early on, I don't know how many times I got picked off just trying to get that, just get the bow back. Because in my head, even today,
Hey,
even right now,
that goes back to patience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And knowing deer behavior.
Yes,
Yeah.
knowing deer behavior, knowing like,
Right.
okay, that deer's got his head behind a tree, now draw, or it's got his head down, or whatever. But in my mind, mentally,
He's looking at me. Draw.
I'm not saying that, because Lord knows I've lost several deer with a bow, but in my mind, it's like, if I can get to full draw, you're done. You know what I mean? Like this game is over. Now, if I can't get to full draw, then you know what I mean. That's the deal. And so I'm just like, gosh, just get the bow back. If you can get it back, this thing's over with. You're going home with me. And so I there's no telling how many times I got busted and got picked off because just didn't wait for the right time to draw.
If it hasn't happened to you yet, it's going to.
Oh,
It's not if, it's when.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen, especially, like I said, when you're hunting in the South, especially Alabama. I mean, a lot of times you feel like you can do jumping jacks in the Midwest, and that deer never look up.
Mm-hmm.
But now Alabama deer, southeastern deer are totally different. You can get away with so much up, on a Midwestern deer than you can, a Southern deer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just. But like you said, I mean, it's patience and knowing when to wait to draw, or
One thing that I know you're supremely good at, and you may not admit it that much on, especially on camera or whatnot, but something that's I never learned to do very well. I can do it okay, but knowing your yardage without your dadgum rangefinder and having to be in your hand every minute.
Exactly.
You need to stand out in the woods, out in the yard for hours, ranging targets and learning how far distances are in the woods. It's not the same as looking 30 yards out there at your target in the open yard.
And it's also not the same from elevation.
That's correct.
No.
You can be on the ground and go, it looks like about 30 yards. When you get in a tree, it's like, hey, it looks like it's a mile away, or whatever. So,
well, hey, my rangefinder is an integral part of my hunting, But if I see an animal, I'm not reaching for my rangefinder because I've already done that. First thing I do when I get in that stand, I do me a 30-yard perimeter. That's the first thing I do. That tree's 28, that tree's 32, that tree's 35.
Yep.
If it's, unless there's one, that's more equal,
Sure.
more consistent. But I'll do me a perimeter, and if he's just out of my perimeter or if he's just in, I know how far to shoot him.
Right.
I know where to move my roller on my pin, or I know where to aim on him. Now, more times than not, if he's beyond that, you got time to range him.
Right.
But like I say, my deal is a 30-yard perimeter. I've been very successful at doing that. I'll never pull my rangefinder out of my pocket if he's within my perimeter.
Yeah.
The only time I ever pull it out if he's beyond it, and that's the only shot I'm going to have.
Right.
So that's very important. A rangefinder is a very, very important piece of equipment. And like we said before, there's tons that you can spend a ton of money on one.
Oh Lord, yes.
Or you can buy a cheap one that'll get the job done.
I see it.
Some of them are more precise and more accurate, more consistent than others. But a rangefinder will make you a more successful archer, no doubt about it.
And from a bow hunting standpoint, shooting 45, 50 yards and in, from a practice standpoint, there's no need in spending crazy money.
No.
I mean, the one I've got out there is stupid. But I bought it for long range rifle hunting. I'm just not going to buy two.
Right.
Right. But I have found it to be vital. And if I ever forget it, I'm like, God.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to where you're a good yardage judger.
That's it.
Practice it because you don't never know what's going to happen.
And with today's equipment,
I'm
comfortable. If it had been, 15, 20 years ago, a little bit slower setups, heavier arrow weights and whatnot. Back then, likely for me, I shot aluminum a long time. I would have been worried about it. I wouldn't have shot outside of 20. But now I'm fairly confident I can go to the woods without a rangefinder and shoot 30, 35 yards because of the speed of my setup.
It's flat.
And, even with a heavy arrow, it's flat. So I can leave my bow set at 25 yards like it is that I'm practicing. I know where I can hold for 20, and I know where I can hold to shoot out to about 30, 35. And you don't need really – most people aren't shooting that far anyway.
Well, the people that's watching this, don't be thinking we're cutting you short, because there's millions of variables.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it's, and we're just trying to explain to you what we think has been a success for us and what works, and that is, just a little bit beyond amateurish.
Right.
I mean, we want you to be successful.
Well, me and him are a little bit beyond amateur. I think you passed that quite a bit.
Yes, it's
but
safe to say.
hey, like this podcast is about, what the beginning bow hunter needs. So, but a rangefinder is a very, very good product to own. Not everybody may not fit in your budget, and learn to judge yardage.
That's it.
Like you said,
pace in the yard.
Go out there and pick you out some trees. A little thing I've told people in my archery shop for years: if you've got a half a dozen broken arrows over there, or arrows that you're not using, especially with fletchings on the end,
stick them up.
Put them every 5 yards. Stand there and look at it, and you train your eyes on the drop, and you'll learn to do that. You can do them 10 yards, you can do them 20 yards, whatever works for you the best. Something for your eye drop to see at those yardages. It will help you train your mind and help you to be a better yardage judge.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, you got guys that are just natural at it. I mean, and I'm blessed in the sense of that a little bit. A lot of times I can see something out there and I'll say, hey, that's 32 yards. Of course, I've been doing it for 40 years.
Right.
But still, it's and it helps. The more times that you put yourself in that situation during your practice routine, the more it becomes natural. It becomes automatic for you. So
you mentioned practice routine, and that is it one of your questions?
Yeah, actually, this is the very last question I've got here. Is leads into it perfectly. Is what would you tell somebody is the best way for them to practice or prepare for?
And that's what I was going to ask is, if you were telling these new archers, because I know what my routine is, and routine, I use that word loosely because my schedule is erratic at best. But best case scenario, you go out and shoot once a week and shoot 100 arrows, and you go out and shoot every day and shoot 3 or 4. What?
Yeah. I'll never give the advice for somebody to shoot 100 arrows.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Right?
Because your 100th arrow is not going to be even close to your first or 5th arrow.
Okay.
I mean, you can overdo it. Muscle memory starts breaking down, and you get to where you're making sloppy shots. A sloppy shot is going to follow you more than a good shot. That's my opinion. Some guys can physically go out there and shoot that 100 arrows and never get fatigued, never get tired. But
they're rare,
this is about the beginning bow hunter right here. So don't overdo it is my advice. Go to a point to where, hey, my first 20 arrows are great. But then after that, my shot starts breaking down. I'm all over the place.
Go put it up.
Put it up.
Yes, put it up.
Put it up. Walk away. Come back an hour or two later, shoot you 6 or 10 more good shots. Don't get to the point to where you're breaking yourself down to where
forming bad habits.
Yeah, you get bad habits, and then it's going, like I said, it's going to follow you.
Yeah.
You don't want the bad habits to be a norm.
Yeah.
Make your quality shots. If it's 10 arrows, if it's 20 arrows, or if it's 30 arrows. When you get to the point where, hey, you first notice that first fatigue, put your bow up, because your shots are not going to be good.
Right. And I've had to stay on myself through the years, because because I used to go out and shoot a lot, and I was one of those guys. I didn't fatigue a lot. I was still playing sports even after high school, you know, and I still enjoyed shooting. And so I go out and I could shoot 100 shots and be okay. Now, that 10 shots, especially after the back injury, I can shoot a little while, and I know immediately, you know, when it's time to put it up, because it goes to crap.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking just like that. And I get frustrated with myself, being like, why is my form failing now? And I know it's because I'm tired. I'm just in my head. And you come out 2 days later, your first couple of shots just stacking in. You're like, you know, it does bring it full circle. Like, hey, I do know what I'm doing. But,
well, with this being about the entry archer, you know, or entry bow hunter, you know, unless you're just a bull, you know, unless you're just an absolute massive guy, you use muscles in your arms and your back that you'll never use for anything else but drawing a bow and arrow. And it takes time to develop those muscles. They never get a workout. I mean, there's certain muscle groups that you, and a lot of times it's just technique that you learn, push and pull, and learn how to draw that bow with consistency and stealthiness. You know, you need to practice that. You need to practice drawing that bow from here to here and not from here to here, because
that's a lot of movement.
That's a lot of movement. You're going to get burned, you know. So learn to practice that routine and do it right, do it stealthy, and be honest with yourself when you reach that point of, hey, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Put it up.
It's funny you're talking about using muscles that you wouldn't normally use. And got a great friend that's a bow technician, and a really good one at that, down in Birmingham. His son Walker, we were talking about his new bow setup, because he gets a new one every year. And Walker's 14, and he had an 80-pound bow, and I think he was drawing 77. I said, Ben,
What are you doing?
why? What? He said, oh, he's in here every day shooting. He said, now he's a little overweight, and he cannot. He said, do a push-up. I mean, he couldn't do a push-up. He couldn't do the first push-up.
But he could draw an 80-pound bow.
But an 80-pound bow, and it, just like it was nothing, just
Exactly.
boom, and I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, I can get down there and do some push-ups, but there's no way I'm drawing that bow.
No,
Well,
that's tough. Man.
Technique will carry you a long ways on that.
Yeah.
You know, you may not, even though I've seen guys that were, you know, skinny as a rail, it looked like a toothpick, could take that 70-pound bow and just like it was nothing, you know, and I'm like,
Take offense
wow.
to that, Jeremy. Hey, no joke. One thing that I've kind of learned over the last, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years to kind of combat that fatigue is because I still want to make sure that I'm sharp, and I still want to make sure that the bow, you know, everything is stacking.
Absolutely.
make sure you shoot during the off season.
Yeah, just shoot.
Yeah.
But like one thing that I've done for several years now is I don't rarely, unless it's, you know, every now and then you need a little group therapy, but most of the time I take one arrow out with me.
I do
Just
that.
one. And just one, because
and I do it because
makes,
of this. It makes me walk back and forth to the target more.
Well, that goes back to your routine also is, you know, I would never tell anybody to stand there and shoot a dozen arrows at one time. You know, shoot your 4 or 5 arrows, go pull them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
that's me.
even if you're shooting one arrow at a certain dot on a bale or whatever, or a 3D animal, shoot you about 4 or 5 arrows at the max, you know, and go pull them. Yeah. Don't stand there, because it goes back to that. Your 8th or 10th arrow is not going to be like your first or second arrow.
Right.
You know,
No.
I mean,
but like, you know, I've
for the average beginning bow hunter.
No, but
you know,
I've noticed that, number one, if I know mentally I've only got one arrow out here, it makes me hold harder in that target too, because I know, especially, let's just say I'm trying to practice at distance, and I'm trying to shoot at 50 yards or something like that. I know I'm going to have to walk down there and get that arrow, so I want it to be a good shot, you know.
Right.
And so I would rather, personally, go out and go, all right, I'm going to take 8 shots, and I want them to all be good. You know, I want them to break clean. I don't want to flinch. I don't want to anticipate the arrow or the shot. Everything's nice and clean, holding the target, and do that, and then they'll go, okay, that's it for the day. You
Yeah.
know, there's
Yep.
there's no reason to go nuts with it. So
And I've gotten to where I'm that way. Just when occasionally I'll take two. Most of the time it's take one arrow. And I shoot year round with my broadheads on, or with a broadhead on. It's the same. I've got the luxury of having several of the old blob targets from back in the day. So I won't shoot them all up in my lifetime. So
yeah,
wear them out.
no doubt. Well, guys, I think we've covered just about all of it. I know we've gone a little bit longer than we typically do.
And I want to say one other thing that I have found with these young guys, a couple that work with and for me, and some of the kids that my nephew hangs around with, and my nephew, and tons of people on social media now, when it comes to their equipment, are more hung up on what it looks like versus how it performs.
Exactly.
And how that needs to be not even the last thing thought of. It doesn't even need to be thought of. That I mean, do you see that?
Oh yeah. I seen it as a shop owner for years. I mean, it's I had guys that came in every year that I want the latest and greatest. Forget about what I got that I killed, that I harvested 5 animals with last year. I want the newest this year, And it's like we were talking earlier. It's just, a lot of it is social media driven.
Yeah.
A lot of it is peer pressure. A lot of it is, hey, I've got the money. I want the best that there is. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Hey, I mean, go buy what your budget allow. But there's so many good products out there that but you get guys every year that I think it's just hey, I want everybody to know I got the best.
Yeah. And it's so strange to me.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So
No,
don't matter if I kill anything. I just want to look good while I'm doing it.
Yeah, and that's that. There's a lot of funny stuff out there on social media about that, but like, for example, my nephew Colby's like, hey, I like this. Well, why? Man, it looks cool. It's got Sitka camo on it. And I'm like, okay, is it worth a flip? I don't know, but it looks cool. I'm like, come on now, let's get to the meat and potatoes here.
Right.
And I guess where I'm going with that is buy something that performs well, is good quality, and that you can perform with, and who cares what it looks like?
That's right.
We've gotten too hung up on that.
Yeah.
But looks of your equipment has started to play a big role. I've noticed.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Uh-oh.
No doubt.
I'm gonna be bad and look at this because it looks like we got another deer down in Kansas.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
first look.
So that's a
there
good
on the
hey,
podcast. That's a good way to.
Yeah, that's a good way to end.
Oh yeah.
So
right there.
there you go.
There you go.
Hey, I want to say I appreciate you guys for inviting me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's an honor for me.
Shoot, we're glad you want to come. We really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
And for the guys here locally, North Alabama or heck anywhere within good driving distance, go see Alan.
Yeah, look, he says he's partially retired. We ain't gonna let him retire.
No,
at all.
Y'all keep dragging me back in.
That's right. Yeah, and in all honesty, though, Alan is the best bow mechanic. I mean, and it's not just my opinion. People will tell you, anybody who's ever taken anything to him will tell you the same thing. So if there's any questions, I mean, he loves archery and loves bow hunting too. Would love to answer any questions that you got too. Give him a call. Go see him for your needs. A wealth of knowledge, really is. So, Alan, thanks for hanging out, and we certainly appreciate it. You guys, I guess this one will drop about this will be Thanksgiving week. So you guys have a very happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys stay healthy. My family and I just kind of got over all the flu and all that crazy stuff too. So
wishing everybody success on your next bow hunt.
Yes, absolutely,
absolutely.
man. You guys have fun.
Hopefully me and Matt can do something live, something short, maybe on Facebook Live.
Yeah,
from Kansas.
Via Kansas.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe we can get
the killing
together up
cabin.
there. That's it.
Good luck, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Put them in out there.
That's right. Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you listening in, and we will see you on the next one.